Great, thanks, John. Okay, just so welcome everybody to the webinar. My name is Mellowdee Brooks. I'm an Assistive Technology Specialist with the Arizona Technology Access Program. For those of you that are not familiar, about our program, I'll just tell you briefly. We are a federally funded program through NAU, Northern Arizona University, and we provide free assistive technology services to everyone in the state, all ages, all disabilities. We don't sell anything. Our job is to educate folks and let them know what's out there and available to help them out. So part of our services, one of our services is training. So that's why we provide free training throughout the state, and then also these webinars. I will let you know that there are people who have signed up for the webinar today who are experts in this field or could teach it themselves, and there are other folks who are just learning about accessibility in electronic format. So this webinar is going to be very basic, an overview. I'm not really going to get into a lot of technical aspects of this or go into keystrokes for screen readers and that kind of thing. It's just going to be very basic. Now, if we get a lot of questions, I will maybe develop another training to go into more in-depth into these issues. So let's see. Just so you're aware, whenever I share my screen like this, I can't see the Adobe interface, the webinar interface. So if you have questions, I may or may not see them. But I will answer questions at the end if I don't get to your question during the actual presentation. Okay, so what I'm going to be working off today is an actual Word document. I am not passing this out because it's not accessible. And the reason it's not accessible is because I'm showing you both what is not accessible and what is accessible as far as creating documents in Word and PowerPoint. So part of this is accessible, but not everything. If you want notes on this, then just contact me, or if you need something in an alternative format, contact me and I'll get that information to you. I am going to give credit where credit is due here. This webinar is partially based on a couple of different sources. On February 2nd, there was a webinar given by actually a lot of organizations, but it was called Accessible Electronic Documents, Authoring Guide for Making an Accessible Document in MS Word 2010. And so I have the moderator information here. It was presented by Holly Anderson and Crystal Jones from the U.S. Department of Education. I've also included links to the archived webinar and their accessibility, their authoring guide. Now, what this authoring guide is it's for the Department of Education and other federal agencies who have to be in compliance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. And that statute says that any program receiving federal monies has to have their electronic documents accessible. So that's where they're sort of coming from. So that document is very interesting, and they also have a checklist there at the longer website. On the accessibility requirements there is where they have the checklist and the authoring guide. And like I said, it's still a very good document. It just may not be exactly what you're looking for, but it's great information. I also looked at a series of webinars from the state of Texas. They have a lot of videos actually on their YouTube channel. And so that's another place where you can go and get a lot of information, not only from PowerPoint and Word, but other Microsoft Office products as well. Okay, so here's just some statistics for folks. I'm not going to read everything today, but there are 318.9 million folks in the U.S. as of last year. 19% of those folks are people with disabilities. So that means there's over 60 million Americans with disabilities. 77 million baby boomers out of 77 million baby boomers, over 4 million turn 65 each year. So now that definitely is a population that's aging. By the year 2030, there will be 20 million people with hearing impairments, 20 to 25 million who will have vision impairments, and 60 million people with cognitive impairments. This is also sort of letting you know why it's going to be really important to have your electronic information accessible. Baby boomers control 3/4 of America's wealth at $28 trillion, and baby boomers outspend younger adults online 2 to 1. So obviously, something we have to think about whenever we are making sure our information is accessible to everyone, which is, of course, the next question. What is accessibility? People who are aging or people who need disabilities oftentimes need some kind of software or equipment to help them gain access to the material. So this can mean people with limited mobility, hearing impairments, visual impairments, people with learning disabilities, and others. Basically, we want everybody to have equal access to this information. And remember that accessibility is about your audience and their needs, not necessarily what you like. Let's see, and of course, allowing people access by many people as possible. For many programs, like I said, the programs that are federally funded, it is the law. So sometimes I might have said must in here or should. You know, everybody should, but it is actually the law for some programs to have this accessibility built in. And of course, it's everybody's responsibility. Okay. Some assistive technology that people with vision impairments might be using are screen readers, screen magnifiers, or refreshable braille displays. People with hearing impairments may need to use video captioning. And people with dexterity may have limitations and have to use an alternative keyboard or mouse options. So you try to help out as many people as possible with the guidelines that have been created by these federal agencies. So when making a Word document, you should be sure that you've made it easy to read, it's easy to navigate, and I'm going to explain navigation and screen readers as we go along. Include alternative options, like if somebody needs Braille or large print. Describe all images with alternative text. So if you have a picture of something, a screen reader won't read that. So you need to put in alternative text when appropriate. You also have to think about captions or transcriptions for videos, or description even for audio files. And it's a good thing to have take a look at the accessibility ribbon and the accessibility checker, which is something I'm going to show you guys in a bit. Okay. So with all that said, now you sort of understand the background of why we even need to do this. Then we can go into looking at some features that will make your document as accessible as it can be. So first thing you want to do is name the file. Even I'm at fault for doing this at some point. Sometimes I'm just in a hurry and I'll just name a file, something that I would typically name a lot of things. And so then when I go back to search for that document, I have no idea what it's called. That's the same kind of situation with this, naming the file. Oh, and whenever these features are both important in Word and PowerPoint, I've put that in the description here and the document. So this is important in both of those programs. Make sure it's descriptive. This particular file that I'm using right now, it's titled Demonstration, which doesn't tell me a whole lot. Instead, I should probably go back and rename it Demonstration Document for Word Accessibility 2010, and then maybe the date. I'm not going to do that. I assume everybody knows how to change the name of your file. But if you don't know, let me know. Next thing that involve both Word and PowerPoint. Most of these things do. There's only a few things that are different about Word and PowerPoint. So that's why I've put a lot of this together. It's the same rules basically apply. So when using color, a lot of people like to use color coding for things, and that's great as long as you understand what that color coding means. If you have a vision impairment, which includes color blindness, I think a lot of people forget about color blindness. People don't necessarily, they can't necessarily distinguish the colors, and so they don't really know what that color is trying to convey. So make sure you have multiple ways of explaining color if you're going to do something like that. The first little table I have here is inaccessible. So I don't know if there's anybody with vision impairments out there, but I'll go ahead and explain these demonstrations as much as possible. So we have a 2-column table with 3 rows apiece, and it says loan 504. The next row says loan 505, and then loan 506, and then next to it, the other column is just colors, orange, yellow, and green. So, and the next table is accessible. It's the same layout, but instead of just having colors, it actually says what the color means. So loan 504 has an orange color beside it, but that means it's late. If it's loan 504, it's got, 505, it's got a yellow background next to it because it's in process, and the word processing is actually in that table. And then green means it's in, the actual word is written in there. So don't just leave it colored, also explain what the colors mean. Color contrast is fun, at least to demonstrate it is. So folks with vision impairments, both in Word and PowerPoint, you need to make sure there's a good color contrast. You might like, the text to be in one color and the background to be in another color, and it might look pretty, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people with vision impairments or, can distinguish it, the meaning. So typically, okay, so we'll just go into color contrast. There is a link here for a program called the Color Contrast Analyzer. There's a link to the one I like. It's the same one. You can actually get this off the Texas link that I sent you as well. But with this particular link that I gave you, all you do is click on that and follow a couple really simple directions, and it automatically goes to what they call now the ribbon. They used to call it the tool. Gosh, now I even forgot the name of it. But the tool, anyways, the thing up top there. So I'm just going to show you what this does. This program lets you know, gives you a number to tell you about the contrast. So it has to be a minimum of 4.5 to 1. And large text has to have a minimum of a 3 to 1 ratio. So I'm just going to go down here, I'm going to open the Color Contrast Analyzer and just sort of show you. Okay, so now I have the color contrast analyzer on top of my document, and I want to make sure the contrast is okay in the color tables I was telling you a bit about. So first thing you do is you click on the eyedropper for the foreground color, and then you click on the text, and so now it's automatically black for you. You go to the background eyedropper, and you click on the background color. So now it tells you down here your contrast rate ratio. So it's 7.15 to 1. So it passes. And it gives you two different categories, AA and AAA. Those are different requirements. It passes both of those. It could pass 1, it could pass AA, but not necessarily AAA, but it will let you know. So that's the color contrast analyzer. Now let's look at something that doesn't pass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the word in, and then I'm going to go over and I'm going to change the color to where it's very close to the background color of the text. The text and the background color are very similar. So I go to the analyzer, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the eyedropper and click on the color of the text, and then I'm going to click on the background color, and now here it tells me that it fails. So that's a quick and easy way you can see if the color contrast is good or not. Flashing objects is something you have to be careful about in any document really that you create. Flashing objects for some people can cause seizures, and also it can be very distracting. So the guideline that most people tend to be using is try not to use it at all. But if you do have to use a flashing object of some sort, should flash no faster than 3 times per second. Okay. Hold on, let me go back. There was a question about the contrast analyzer. You know, that's a good question, Daniel. I'm not sure if it's available for the Mac. I think it is. Yes, it is. Okay. You're welcome. Okay. Another thing that's different in this webinar today than the other webinars that I've taken a look at is they didn't actually try to use a screen reader to demonstrate, and so I'm actually going to try to do that today. I did for what some of you may know as AT Happy Dance to try to make sure the JAWS is going to work for us today. I'm using a screen reader called JAWS, JAWS, that stands for Job Accommodation with Speech. It's been around for a very long time. And so in some of these, I'm actually going to turn JAWS on and let you hear what JAWS does when something's inaccessible and when it's accessible. And let's see. So the next one is creating logical hyperlinks. Again, this is true in both Word and PowerPoint. You know, sometimes you'll see a hyperlink click here. That doesn't necessarily tell you what that hyperlink means or goes to. Somebody may not understand. Also, hyperlinks take a really long time. Well, they can. If they're long, they take a long time for a screen reader to read, because a screen reader is going to read as much text as it as it has there on the page. So I'm advertising our conference a little bit. I have links to our conference here. One is what's considered not so great of a hyperlink, and the other one is a better hyperlink. So I'm go ahead and now when I turn on JAWS, my screen is going to flash a little bit. Don't worry about that. I'll just let you hear what this stuff sounds like. Okay. Hold on.
JAWS for Windows is ready. Demonstration-Microsoft Word. Print view. Edit.
Okay.
JAWS updates available dialog. Do you want to and don't alert me to the page 3. Demonstration dash.
Okay. So now I'm going to have it read the first link.
Link to OzTax conference dash link astop.org/conference/sessions dash schedule.
Okay. So that's great. But if you're in a hurry for some reason and you don't necessarily want the whole link to be read, you can use a link like this.
Link to OzTax link conference.
You notice what JAWS does is it told you before it read the word conference, it said this is a link conference. So you know that the word conference is a link. Okay, just a second here. Somebody had just asked how they could access this particular document. As I said in the beginning, I'm not sharing this document. It's just a document I created. It's not accessible. But the webinar will be archived, and John will give you that information at the end of the webinar today. It will be archived. You can go back and take a look at it. Maybe if you decide to do this yourself, you can make it your own. So that's why now if you need notes, if you want the information, I can get that to you later. Just let me know. Let's see. Okay. Now we're going to go to another feature called languages. Okay, so you want to make sure your languages are set correctly. Hold on just a second. So this is how, if your language is not set correctly, JAWS is going to read this.
Imaginación es más importante que sabiduría. Albert Einstein. Page 4.
Well, okay, maybe it did do that right. It wasn't supposed to do it right, though. Let's see. So how you figure this out to make sure it speaks the right language is go to Review, and then Languages right here. You can follow my mouse. It's in the Review ribbon. You can set
upper ribbon, lower ribbon, menu group.
Well, I clicked on
menu, language dialog. The speller and other proofing tools automatically use dictionary.
Okay, I'm just going to turn JAWS down for a minute. So here you can mark the language as either English or Spanish. So if this did say it in English, you could highlight it, change it to Spanish so it would say it correctly. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is headings. Headings are very important when using a Word document. There are no headings per se in PowerPoint. So headings are mainly a feature you want to take into consideration for Word. Okay, so headings make it easier for some types of assistive technology like screen readers to scan and find information quicker. Also, a lot of times when we make our own headings, we'll try to use bold or italicize. Screen readers don't tell the person that, this is bold or italicized. So you have to make sure it's an actual heading. I'm going to start off with the inaccessible headings. So I'm going to go back to the Home tab. And right now, up here on the top under styles, you can see that it says body text. So the screen reader will read that. It's just not going to tell you that it's a heading. And if you were looking for this particular heading using a screen reader, you wouldn't be able to find it. It would just, you have to go down line by line to find it. So we're under change styles. There's this little tiny arrow. We're going to click on that. And here again, it tells me in styles that this is a body text. I'm going to highlight it. And it's a body text right here. If I go down to accessible heading, that one, right here now, it tells me it's an actual heading. It's heading 1. So that's one way you can find out if something is an actual heading or not. And then you have your heading 1, 2, 3, and so on. Let's see. So we have to make sure that the style is a heading. And now we have to make sure it matches the outline. So I'm going to click out of styles for a moment. And I'm going to go up to the View tab in the ribbon. And then there's a little tiny box here next to Navigation Pane. I'm going to click on that. And it will also tell me that this is a heading. So that is another way to find out what's a heading and what's not. If I click on the inaccessible heading, then it's just going to say Assistive Technology. It's not going to have a little, it's not going to say, have the little arrow to be a heading. And they're in order. The accessible headings are in order. They're indented there, sorry, right here on the side. So I'm going to turn JAWS back up and let you hear the difference.
Next heading. Last heading. Heading level 1 accessible heading.
So you notice when I was reading the headings that were not accessible, it just read them. But then when it read the accessible heading, it said heading, accessible heading.
Last heading.
I'll play that again.
Heading level 1 accessible heading.
It tells you the level, if it's a level 1, level 2, level 3 heading. So those are ways you can find out, make sure that that's formatted correctly. All right, now I'm going to go to lists. Again, this is the same in Word and PowerPoint. Screen readers don't know what stars or highlighting is, so it's always best if you're going to make a list to actually make a bulleted list. I'm going to go back to the Home ribbon. And so if you were going to make a list, you would use one of the features up here, the bullet list, basically. I'm just going to let you hear what JAWS says here on these inaccessible list.
Star cake. Star pie.
Okay, that really doesn't tell me a whole lot. But the accessible list.
Bullet cookie. Bullet cake. Bullet pie.
Obviously, I was hungry whenever I was writing this. But it tells you it's a bullet, so you know that it's a list. You may not know that it's a list otherwise. Okay, there's a couple ways to make sure it's a list. I get out of the navigation pane there. Okay. So one thing is that if right now it's clicked on the accessible list and you see up top there it has a bullet list highlighted. But if I click on the inaccessible list, there are no bullets highlighted up top in this area right here. So that's one way you know between an accessible and an inaccessible list. Another way is to use Shift F1. So I'm going to do Shift F1.
Shift F1.
And that's going to bring up a reveal formatting pane. And then toward the bottom here, there's bullets and numbering. I've clicked on the actual accessible list. So here it tells me that there's a list and it's bulleted at level 1. So that's good. If I click on the inaccessible list, that goes away because that actually isn't a list. So that's another way you can make sure that your list is accessible. All right, so we're going through this pretty fast, but this is the first time I've done this webinar. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take with demonstrations. So if there's questions, at the end, like I said, if I have time, I'll answer those. The next one that you have to take into consideration is columns. So you have to make sure that the columns have been put in there in a way that screen readers can read them. The first 2 quotes, I'll just go ahead and let you hear how JAWS reads those. There's a quote by Walt Disney and there's a quote by Albert Einstein.
The way to get started imagination is.
Oops, sorry.
Is to quit talking and more important, begin doing the knowledge. Walt Disney Albert Einstein.
So as you can see, what happened is the screen reader, even though it looks like there was 2 different columns, it wasn't formatted as 2 different columns. So the screen reader, it reads from top to bottom to left to right. Now there's a couple different, okay, so let me show you. You know what, I'm sort of afraid to show you a demonstration of JAWS saying it correctly because one time when I did this, it worked perfectly. The other time when I did this, it messed up JAWS and it wouldn't read anymore. So I'll let you hear a little bit of this, and then if we have time later, maybe I'll go back. Okay, so this is the way one of them should sound.
Blank. The way to get started is to quit section 2, page 4, 2 text columns. Talking and begin doing N dash Walt Disney.
Okay, so that wasn't perfect, but if you have 2 separate columns, it's going to read the first column first, right to left, top to bottom, and then it's going to read the second column. So even though Albert Einstein's quote is right next to it, it didn't read that because it's in a column layout. Now I'll show you how to figure out if you have a column layout or not. The easiest way to do this is to go up to your home ribbon and click on the, I used to call it paragraph, but the little P icon, backwards P. Anyways, you click on there and it will show you what's been tabbed and what hasn't been tabbed. So as you can see, the inaccessible column, all I did was I wrote text and then I tabbed, and the screen reader doesn't know that it's supposed to just go to the next line. It follows the tabs. My second set of columns does not have any tabs, and so that's what you want. Because again, it's that top to bottom, left to right reading. Okay, and then there's, of course, another way to tell if you actually have columns or not. It's not quite coming up right, so let me try this again.
Shift F1.
Okay, well, there's usually over here in the reveal formatting pane, it will tell you if there's columns or not. And it's not showing up right now, so I'm not sure, but that's the easiest way to tell if you have columns typically, is by the little paragraph icon. And you're supposed to be able to do Shift F1 and it should tell you down here. Okay. Well, hopefully you get the point though. Don't make your own columns. Insert using the built-in features of the program. Okay. So tables is the one we'll probably talk a lot about. There's different kinds of tables. There's layout and data tables. We'll talk about the layout tables first. Let me get rid of this pane so everybody can see a little bit better. Okay. So the layout tables are ones that you don't need a header row to explain the data. This is a couple data tables, one's inaccessible, one's accessible. So basically this is an agenda. And agendas typically you don't need a header row. So the information in here, it's a just three cell, one row, I'm sorry, 3 columns, 1 row table. It's got introductions, Jill from 8 to 8:20, updates from Mark from 8:20 to 9 o'clock, and outreach from Sophie from 9 to 9:20. There's a few things you need to remember about tables no matter what. Always use grid lines, because if you're using a screen magnifier, then grid lines is easier to follow the information. Don't leave columns or rows blank, because a screen reader could like if there's a whole column blank, it might think it's the end of the table and not continue reading. So make sure there's no blank columns or cells. Don't use tabs or spaces, and check the reading order. So that is something we're going to be talking about a lot as well, the reading order. So let's look and see how JAWS says the inaccessible table.
Inaccessible, pay table 3, uniform table, introductions, updates, outreach, row 1 of 1, column 1 of 3. Tab, selected, Jill, Mark, Sophie, tab, 8 o'clock to 8:20, 8:20 to 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 9:20, selected, column 3 of 3, last cell in table, warning, pressing tab here at.
Okay, we'll turn JAWS down for a few minutes. So you can see it didn't read left to right, top to bottom. And that's what we would want the screen reader to do, so we get the information as we need it. So let's see if JAWS has quit talking yet. Okay. Now we'll go down to the accessible one and see how that sounds.
Table 4, uniform table, introductions, row 1 of 3, column 1 of 3. Tab, Jill, tab, 8 o'clock to 8:20, tab, updates, tab, Mark, tab, 8:20 to 9 o'clock, selected, column 3 of 3. Okay, so you notice how somebody would use this who's using a screen reader is by using the tab key. So that's what I was doing. In the inaccessible layout, what would happen is when I would click tab, it would say introductions, updates, outreach all together. Then I would say tab again, it would say Jill, Mark, Sophie. Now the reading order is correct here in the accessible layout, because every time I hit tab, it read right to left, top to bottom, and that's what we want it to do. Okay.
Data tables are those tables that tend to be a little bit more complex, and you do need a header to explain the information. Again, always use the built-in features to create a table and check the reading. So when you have a table, a data table, you have to, of course, check the reading order and make sure it's what's called inline, which is another term I'm going to be using a couple times during this presentation. Inline means that you didn't just drag and drop something. Inline means that, you know, of course, there's like lines on a piece of paper. It's all even. It's all on the same line, the same spacing. If you drag and drop something in the middle, it's not going to be in line. But we will look at a couple of inaccessible data tables, and then we'll look at an accessible one. So I click on this first data table, and then up top here, above my ribbon, it says the word Picture Tools comes up, the ribbon for Picture Tools. That means that this is a picture. Yeah. Screen readers will not read pictures. You can put alternative text in there, which we'll talk about in a minute, but you know, this is not an accessible table. It's a picture, so it's not going to work. Okay. You also have to make sure that there's no, you have to keep your table simple, even your data table simple. The second one is inaccessible because it has merged cells. Merged cells is another feature that you want to avoid when making an accessible table. Screen readers, again, will not read complex tables. So we click on our table here, and we notice that it's good. Well, it begins out good because instead of Picture Tools up here at the top of the ribbon, we have Table Tools. So we know that it is an actual table. But again, it's got the merged cells, so that's not going to bode well for the screen reader. And then you always want your header row to repeat as needed. So we are going to click on the header row, and we're going to go to Table Tools and Layout, I think. And you notice, so I went up to Table Tools after I highlighted the header row, and then I over here on the right hand side there's an icon called Repeat Header Rows. It's not highlighted, so that feature is not turned on for this table, again making it more inaccessible. Okay, so got two things not going for it well. Now we're going to check to see if this table is in line. So how we're going to do that is we're going to select the whole table, and we're going to right click, and then we will go to Properties, right here in the bottom, Table Properties. And then we go to Text Wrapping. If Around is highlighted, then that means that table is not in line. If None is highlighted, then that's actually what you want right here under Text Wrapping. So 2 out of 3 is probably not that great still, as far as this table is concerned. So now I'm going to go down to the accessible table, and we're going to check it out on the way we did the other ones. So I clicked on it, and Table Tools came up, so that's good. It's not a picture. Then we're going to go to, we're going to click the header row and go to Table Tools and Layout, and header row, Repeat Header Rows is highlighted, so that's good. Now we got to check to make sure it's in line. select it, right-click, table properties, and none is highlighted, and so that's good. This is as an accessible table as we can make it. If you want to hear, we'll hear JAWS a little bit. Oops, that wasn't me, folks. Okay.
Table 6, uniform table. Either row 1 of 5, column 1 of 4, page 6. 2010, row 2 of 5. Tab Toyota, tab Corolla selected, tab white selected, column 4 of 4.
Okay. So as you can tell, it's reading it correctly. So we have an accessible table. And the way you do that again is by going into Insert and then Insert Table. Don't ever use the Draw feature. Always insert the table. Insert table here. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Undo. Okay. So I was at Insert Table, and then you can do it this way through the icons, or Insert Table and tell it the number of columns and rows you would like. You want to cancel that because I don't actually want a table to go on there. I had a question, so I'm going to go back, look at that real quick. Okay. All right, so text boxes is the next area. Again, text boxes have to be in line for both Word and PowerPoint. This box is not in line, but always make sure they are. And let me think here. The way. Okay. Okay. We'll go on, but make sure that your text boxes. Make sure that you haven't like dragged and dropped a text box. Make sure it was actually created in the insert text box route. And now we get to images. Again, images, pictures, images of text, of tables, shapes, icons, charts. Any of those images are not read by screen readers. So, and this is, of course, important in both Word and PowerPoint. You have to add descriptive text or alternative text to them. Captions or other information. And make sure that the objects are in line so a screen reader will read the information as it should. Okay, so this is what we're going to do here. I think I'm going to go ahead and have JAWS read something. Just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to try to have JAWS read this happy face and this logo of ASTAP.
Land. Link graphic https://encrypted-tbn3.static.com/images q equals tbn land. Link graphic https://.
Okay, so as you saw there, it didn't tell me there was a happy face, and it didn't tell me there was a ASTAP logo. And the reason is because these are pictures that I've dragged and dropped into this document. So the way to fix that, and this is one of the most important things for presentations, because, for instance, we've asked whatever presenters are going to be at our conference this summer to either be in on this webinar or to watch the archived. because alt text is very important, and that's really what takes us the longest to fix on somebody's presentation, because all those presentations have to be accessible. So what you do is you click on the picture, you right click, and then go to Format Picture. And then on the bottom, there's this little box called Alt Text. This is where you write in information about the logo, which is important. You put it under the description box. And so I'm just going to go ahead and write that in. Oops. Okay, so what I've typed in there, ASTAP, Arizona Technology Access Program logo, because that's important. We want people to know that. You notice that I put this in the description area and not the title area. That's because before Word 2010, all that was here in this area was description. Title is something that they used that was new with Word 2010. The problem with that is if you put this information in the title and whoever's getting your document in electronic format, they don't have Word 2010, they have Word 2007 or even an older version, they're not going to get the information because they don't have the title area. So always put in the description what the important information you're trying to convey to the person. Okay, logo, close. Okay, now I'm going to go to the happy face. And you notice whenever I put my mouse over the happy face, it gives me a URL that's extremely long. That's because, especially when you get pictures off the internet, that's how long the URLs are. And again, the screen reader is going to read every text it recognizes. So that's why it just started reading and wouldn't stop reading, because it got to the happy face and it started reading that link. So we got to change that. Well, okay, we changed it a couple ways. So we click on it, right click, and down to Format Picture, and over to Alt Text, and you see it's all there in the description. We're going to take all of that out and put in there what we want it to say when it comes to the happy face. Now, some people would think that this is decorative. You know, a lot of times we put happy faces or flowers in documents or on PowerPoint slides to make them look pretty, not realizing that that doesn't help somebody who's using a screen reader necessarily. So if it's just decorative, one of the suggestions is to put in quote, and then a space, and then a quote. And so when that happens, all JAWS is going to do when it comes to that line where the happy face is it's going to say quote, space, quote. And that is much better than reading that long URL. Now, if you really need the person to know that there's a happy face there, you can put happy face or smiley face or whatever you want to do. But if it's just decorative and it doesn't really convey any meaning to the topic, then putting something like quote, space, double quote is the best. Okay, so I'm going to hit close, close. Now let's see how JAWS reads this.
Land, link, graphic, quote, 0.72 inches wide by 0.72 inches high, space. Land.
Oh, hold on.
Enter. Link, graphic OzTab Arizona Technology Access Program logo 2.37 inches wide by 0.
Okay, you can probably clear off some other information on there too, so it doesn't tell you the size of the picture, but basically that's how to put in alternative text. And like I said, that's very important. Now I have here on my notes, group multiple images. A lot of times when we give presentations, especially in the field of assistive technology, on our slide, we'll put, like, if we're talking about phones, we'll put in pictures of lots of different phones, just for examples to show people. But again, that's hard for a screen reader. So what you can do in that respect is select both images. Well, usually what you can do is copy and paste to a Word document and then basically group the images and make them one picture. And then the screen reader only has to read it once. Yeah, okay. So now we've gone to headers and footers. Again, this is important for Word and PowerPoint. The information in the header and the footer and watermarks are not automatically read by Assistive Technologies. So if there's vital information such as, confidential, do not distribute, for your eyes only, you really need to type it near the beginning of the main title page so the reader gets that information. If you try to put it in a header or footer, it's not going to be read automatically. And the person getting the document may or may not know to access the header or footer. Another thing to think about is audio, video, and multimedia. Again, both in Word and PowerPoint. So we talk here about if it's audio only, you're going to need a transcript. All these files should be accessible, accurate, and complete. Because if somebody has a hearing impairment, obviously they're not going to be able to access the video or whatever you might have embedded in your document because they can't hear it. Video only, you need a text description in there for people with vision impairments, is a good example. And then if you have both audio and video, just make sure you have synchronized captions and audio descriptions. And if you're having a real difficult time for whatever reason in providing those features, consider providing that information in a different format. Maybe a separate link so they can go to a video and watch it captioned in another format. Okay, so a few other things here that are important to know is forms. Forms should not be used in Word. They can be, and they can be accessed by a screen reader, but there's a lot of complications with it. So if you do have a form, try to put it in a different kind of document, one that's more accessible. Yeah, it just shouldn't be in Word. And you can also mention, as I did in the beginning, if you need this in alternative format or alternative versions, you can let people know in the beginning of your presentation, and then create it if it's requested, if you don't already have sorry, if you don't already have that available. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about a program that's not built into the computer. Well, so part of it is and part of it isn't. The accessibility / productivity ribbon. And so this is a toolbar that has different features for making your document accessible. I do have it up here in my ribbon, the productivity tab. And as you can see, there's an accessibility checker here. Now the accessibility checkers in this and the one that's built into the operating system or into Word is not all, it doesn't cover everything. It's just a basic check. You want to make sure, you might want to use some different tools to verify that a document is accessible, even if these features say that it is accessible. It doesn't always cover everything. So you may or may not have this productivity tab. So how you find out is you just click somewhere on your ribbon, you right click, and then customize the ribbon. And you want to make sure that customize ribbon here is highlighted on the left hand side. And then on the right hand side, if you have it already, it's going to be listed in the right pane. Mine is listed because obviously I have it, but I actually didn't have this before today. So I went and got it. And if you do have it though, just click on it and then say OK, and then it will come up here on your ribbon. If you don't have it, you can go to this URL right here, and like I said, I really like this particular URL because if you click on it, you click some arrows and then you have it, and you don't have to unzip any files or anything like that. It just happens automatically. It's up on your ribbon. All right, now I'm going to talk about some features that are specific to PowerPoint. PowerPoint it does not have headers. We talked about those earlier. So it's important to use unique titles on every slide, so the person using a screen reader can get to where they want to go a little bit faster. Always using the built-in features for design and content. So I'm going to show you that now. I'll minimize my document, my Word document, and I'm going to open up a PowerPoint. Okay, so if we go down here to New Slide, and we want to use one of these built-in templates for our slides. That way everything will be more accessible. So if I wanted to put a title and some kind of content in, I would select this one. Click to add title. I guess I should make that a really good title, shouldn't I? Test example for content. Okay, so you noticed in the second part where it says click to add text, you have the little icons, and that is how you insert table, insert charts, and so on into a PowerPoint slide. If you cut and paste, if you draw, anything like that, it's not going to be an accessible document. You should use one of these to make sure that it's in line and the screen reader is going to read it in the right order. Okay. So let's look at reading order in one of the slides I have already created. Okay.
Edit. Reminders. Reminders. Tab.
Oops, sorry.
Space. And dash think about contrast. And dash use short meaningful. Hyperlinks. N-use alternative text for any images. N-use simple tables only. N-use simple tables only.
And again, I'm not a proficient JAWS user, so I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to go to the other column. But you noticed there are two columns here, and whenever I did the down arrow, it read in order that it should.
N-use standard slides. N-check reading order. Take out any distracting animation/transitions. Alternative formats.
Okay. So I'm going to turn JAWS down there, and we're going to look at the reading order. And it's really easy to make sure it's a correct reading order in PowerPoint. All you have to do is typically use tab. Hold on. Got to do the whole thing. Okay. So whenever I didn't have anything specific selected, I just clicked on the whole slide in itself, and I pushed tab. Reminders came up. Then I pushed tab again. Reminders in Word came up. And did tab again. PowerPoint came up. And so that is the correct reading order. And so that's good. Now, shapes is something that you should put alternative text in if it has any meaning. So right now I'm going to insert a shape, any shape. Okay. So I've got the shape in there. I'm going to format it. Going to go to the text box. Oh, sorry, the alt text, and put in hello. And we're going to pretend like hello is really important. Okay, close. Then we're going to write on it, maybe. And in the box here, in the shape, we're just going to say hello as well. Okay. The real reason I'm showing you this is, say that you want hello to be the second thing read. When you put in a shape, it actually becomes the last thing in the reading order. So if I go and tab, oh, hold on.
Reminders. Tab object placeholder. Tab object placeholder. Level 1. Bullet PowerPoint. Level 2. Bullet tab oval. Oval is on top of object placeholder and is covered by text box.
Okay. Basically what I need you to know is that the shape is going to be read last. So make sure it's where you want it to be whenever you input that into the document. Okay.
No selection.
So here we have a complex image. I have 6 hexagons on this document. So complex image, you really shouldn't try to put everything in the alt text area. You could say something like descriptive text in notes, pane, or appendix. So if it winds up being really complicated, just refer them somewhere else where they can get that information. In PowerPoint, you also want to be sure that you have, like if you're going to use a sound, you also need some other kind of text to explain what's going on in that sound. It's also important to think about animations and transitions. They are, don't use them too much in a live presentation because they can be distracting. But also, whenever you give the electronic document to somebody else, you would want to take those animations or transitions out if at all possible, because it's not going to be easy for them to gain the information. Transitions and animations don't work well with screen readers. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Word document. And I think I've at least given you some basic information on everything here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the question area and see who had questions. Okay. Okay, Beth, as I said, I'm not going to be posting these documents because they're not accessible, but I can get you the information. Are there any other questions right now? Yes, Kelly, there are other screen readers. I just had JAWS on this handy. There's NVDA, which is free, and people tell me that it's very good. Also, if you have a newer version of, I believe it's Microsoft Word, but Windows is now free in Office 2013. And so there are a couple of free ones out there. But we can't recommend any screen readers. If you want to get back to me later, I can give you information on free screen readers and ones that aren't so free. JAWS is not free. I can tell you that right up front. Beth, no, I haven't looked into Google Docs yet. A lot of the accessibility for Google Docs and Google Slides has to do with, that I've seen so far, has to do with shortcut keys. But that is something that I think we need to look into doing a training on. So I'll make a note of that. You're welcome, Erin. Not a problem, Sean. Is it Sean or Sean? I think you go by Sean. Okay, Matt. We'll make a list of people. Okay, good. You're welcome, Laura. Okay, Julie, we'll add you. You're welcome, Kelly. You're welcome, folks. Okay, Brooke, I got you down. See you later, Sean. I'll try to do a Google Chrome webinar in a few months. I'm going to have to learn it first.
Attendees button to activate, press spacebar. To activate, press spacebar.
For those of you that are still here, one of the issues about me giving out this information is it's not accessible, and we're federally funded. So by law, it's supposed to be accessible, but I will get the content of the information to you.
Chat button to activate, press spacebar.